Peace. This is Jamal Robinson with 720astrology.com. Today's date is May 1st, 2024. At the time of recording this, it's 2:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. So by now, Mars and Venus have made their ingresses into their respective domiciles. Mars in Aries, Venus in Taurus. But in this video, I want to focus on Venus. And the title of this is Venus in Taurus, the Promise Challenged. When a planet is in its rulership, in the sign it rules, it has a strong promise, a strong potential. And I want to just dissect that word promise, though, to start with. What is a promise? If you look at that word etymologically from its origin, the word promise means to throw, to send. And then potential means possibility. So when a planet is in its rulership, there's great potential and there's a strong promise. Promise, to throw, to send. You think about when you go fishing, that water, that body of water is the potential. And you casting your rod out into the water is based on a promise that you will catch something because you are in a place of potential, great potential. Now, why does it have potential? Why does it have potential? Because it is the place where fish live, the water. So when a planet is in its rulership, your chances of catching a fish are greater because you're casting your rod in a place where there's high likelihood that a fish will bite at some point. At some point. Just because the planet is well dignified does not mean that you'll catch a fish every time you cast your rod, or that you will just easily be able to pull something out of the water. There's great potential and there's great promise. Why am I saying all this? Because Venus in Taurus, as the ruler of Taurus, has a promise. And that promise is security. That promise is safety. That promise is having food, resources, natural resources, gas in my truck, gas in the house to run the furnace, gas for me to utilize it to cook food on the stove. It promises to have food in the refrigerator. It promises to have money in the pocket, money in the bank. That's the promise of Venus in Taurus. And the word promise means to throw, to send. So it is sending out a message. It is sending out a frequency. It's casting the rod. And the message or the frequency is, I have. I have all that I need. Now, the challenge of the promise, of the realization of the promise, is that things come along and challenge the realization of the promise. And right now, the promise that Venus holds in Taurus is being challenged by a very powerful force. Two very powerful forces. It's being challenged, and I was going to do this all fancy with the chart showing, but it is what it is. It is being challenged by two powerful malefic forces, Saturn and Pluto. Venus is at 2 degrees of Taurus. Saturn is at 16 degrees of Pisces. So Saturn is 46 degrees away from Venus. That means they have a semi-square. All right. So somewhere Saturn may be making us feel like there are limits to all things Venusian, to procuring resources, to feeling loved and secure in the love we have, to all our other necessities. There may be a feeling of limitation right now. Okay? Then we have Pluto, an even more powerful malefic, is squaring Venus right now. So Pluto may be showing us things we didn't see regarding the Venusian aspects of our life. Pluto may be revealing secrets, even in relationship, finances, resources. Pluto may be bringing up deep, dark desires. Pluto may be triggering our root chakra to where we're functioning purely on desire and just a very prehistoric survive at any cost. Ooh, I want that. Very, very primitive. It may be triggering that. This may be triggering feelings of being victimized. So the promise is being challenged. There's a promise, Venus and Taurus, but it's being challenged. How can we turn this around to make it work for us? Look at the archetypes. Start with Saturn. You know, I'm always talking about Saturn. Why? Because Saturn opposes my sun. So I've always had to have recognition and acknowledgement of Saturn because I can't get away from it. So I've had to study it. Plus Saturn rules my sun traditionally. I'm an Aquarius. What does Saturn want? Saturn wants us to prove that we are worthy of what we say we want or desire. Saturn wants us to prove that we deserve to have the promise of Venus in Taurus realized. So Saturn makes us feel limited, squeezes on our time for some of us. Maybe creates limits around our money right now. Like, man, the money ain't kicking like I need it, and Saturn's like, I want your time. I want you to endure. I want you to earn it. I want you to prove that you are worth being rewarded, that you deserve the reward. So what can we do right now? It's boring. Sound like a broken record, but that old discipline, that word discipline, what people ain't willing to do is the thing to do right now. What they ain't willing to do. The boring stuff, the laborious, the tedious things, the shoring up of the foundation is important right now because that's what Saturn wants in order for the promise to be realized. Pluto wants us to not bullshit. Pluto brings up things to the surface that maybe we don't want to see. There are things we need to acknowledge and things we need to filter out and integrate in, because Pluto is ultimately the truth. Pluto also is testing the wheel, because Pluto is the agent of true will, W-I-L-L. And this is how Pluto and the sun work together. When you look at the glyph of the sun and you see that dot in the middle, see that glyph of the sun? That dot in the middle? That dot is actually what Pluto is working in concordance with. And we would think that Pluto, as the ruler of the underworld, is the biggest antithesis of the sun that you can have. That's light versus dark. But you see that circle that Pluto is giving birth to out of the ark? That circle here is the same as that circle in there. They are the same thing. Pluto is giving birth to this, because that dot in the middle of the sun is the truth. What the sun shows out on the outer realm sometimes can be a facade, but that dot in the middle is the truth. It's the heart that Leo is associated with. It's in the core, the center. And Pluto wants to give birth to that. So that's the true will. So our will is being tested. Our resolve is being tested. Intestinal fortitude. Venus aspects with Pluto are very important this year, because Venus is the only planet that will complete its synodic cycle with Pluto all in 1 year. In other words, synodic means same, syn, S-Y-N, same, node. Node means knot, same knot, so that means bundle. So when planets are conjunct, they are bundled together and they start a new synodic cycle, where they're bundled or they conjoin at the same degree, and as they move and separate, they're moving throughout the cycle, and the cycle concludes and restarts when they are conjoined again. All right, so Pluto and Venus are working out something this year. They're working out something this year. 2024, let's just say this in a nutshell. 2024, if you are rebuilding, this is the year where you're doing all the grunt work. A van just drove by with freedom on it. So I tell you, my environment speaks to me. Neptune in the first house. Van just drove by with freedom on it. Venus rules over Friday. Friday from Phrygia. Freedom. Venus is about freedom. It's one thing that gets overlooked sometimes. Venus is freedom seeking. Even in Taurus, by having resources for Taurus lead to freedom. Okay, but anyway, Venus and Pluto going through this dance this year, and that the groundwork is being laid, the foundation is being laid for 2025. 2025 is the year that if you're doing your work, and you've been doing your work and toiling, set your sights 2025, 2026. Whole new world we're going to be in. Whole new world. All these outer planets are going to be in air and fire. It's going to be a whole new world. We're in a womb right now. This is gestation. And piece by piece, this thing is starting to merge, this new baby. And so Venus danced with Pluto. Venus, which partly deals with resources, it's being there. This is the transformation. This is Easter for all things Venus. You know, Easter, death, burial, resurrection, because Venus is dancing with Pluto, the planet that carries the signature of death, burial, resurrection, transformation. So on the 17th of February, Venus was conjunct Pluto at zero of Aquarius. That's the start of the synodic cycle. April 29th, Venus makes its first quarter square with Pluto. That's the cycle we're in now. First quarter square is like, hey, there's some action need to be taken. So Pluto applies intensity. We got to do something. Something you gotta shit or get off the pot. You know, excuse my Moorish Latin. You got to do something right now. That's Pluto. May, I've been telling clients when I did like their yearly readings, May is decision time. Things are popping in May because Pluto is applying a lot of intensity. We're gonna have Mercury's gotta form its first quarter square with Pluto. Later on, Mars. You know, so it's a lot of intensity that starts in May with the Venus-Pluto transit. On July 12th, Venus will oppose Pluto at 0 of Leo and 0 of Aquarius. And at this time, Pluto will be retrograde. Sidebar, Pluto moves retrograde tomorrow, May 2nd. So here's this going back over. And what is Pluto going to do eventually? It's going to go and dip its toe for the last time back in Capricorn, in an earth sign. That last time, I'm telling you, this is cleaning the Aegean stables. That's what we're doing. We're cleaning out the last bit of feces. You know, we're cleaning it up. Venus is going to be dancing with Pluto, cleaning up. This has a lot to do with finances. December 7th, Venus in Aquarius again, 0 of Aquarius, will conjoin Pluto again at 0 of Pluto. December is going to show us, at this time Pluto is direct again. December that's something is going to pop in December that will give an indication of the world to come, the future. Something's going to show up, and this is going to show up in different ways on an individual basis, but a lot of it is going to depend on how you are maneuvering from now until December, how you've been maneuvering since February of this year up until December, how you're maneuvering, because that is going to have a lot to do with the world to come. So, let's talk about this. Venus is a planet of love, right? And today, Venus is in an exact square with Pluto. Let me tell you a little story time. 12 years ago, Venus is in Taurus, okay? Like it is now. And 12 years ago is when I decided to go back to school and finish my so-called college education. Why? Because I was on the cusp, I was on the tail end of, not the tail end. I was still in the deep wounding phase of my previous business had collapsed. Okay. And the collapse started in 2011. And it's funny, at that time, as I look back, there was a T-square between Uranus, Pluto, and Saturn. Saturn was in Libra. Uranus was in Aries. It had just moved into Aries, and Pluto was in Capricorn. Oh man. Oh man. Whole world went crashing. People locked me out of my gym. All my equipment was stuck in there. I had to come up with like $4,500. I don't know who. I had to borrow the money. I don't know how I got the money. And had to, so I could just get my equipment out of it. It was just, oh man. And what I didn't know was that I was opening up a whole new phase of life, and that something was dying. After all that started happening, I started gaining weight, got out of shape. And you know, it makes me think back to that movie, 12 Years a Slave, which I never saw. I don't have the time to watch a lot of movies, you know, but just the title, 12 Years a Slave. I feel like the past 12 years many times has felt like the whole 12 years a slave type of toiling. And I'm not being negative. There have been advances throughout these past 12 years, but I've had to rebuild myself. I've had to rebuild myself. I had to start over, start from scratch, literally, and create a new Jamal. And I think I don't know if I did it on here, but I talked somewhere else about it. I got Pluto trying my sun. And so I have the ability to always remake myself. But you know how hard that is? You know, to completely wipe out who you are and have to rebuild it. Although Pluto gives you the power when it's in a trine, but Pluto will never make things fun. So here I am. Why am I bringing all this up? Because Jupiter is back in Taurus again. 12-year cycle. And a few months ago, I stopped smoking cigars. You know, I love to smoke Cuban, Honduran, Nicaraguan cigars. I love them. I got a store down in Austin named Babalu, and I'm a member of the store, and you know, get discounts. And I stopped. You know, I got the message to start the transition. You know, so I had to cut that out. You know, smoking is my vice. Like, I never really been a big drinker, but anything smoking, you know. So I cut that out. Then a few months ago, my wife and I decided we're gonna get really serious, like back in the day serious. My wife and I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, and she used to be a competitive figure competitor, what they call the figure and fitness division. And we decided, gotta get back serious. And so I had sat and thought about this, and I'm like, you know, I've been 12 years a slave. I lost my business, and with Jupiter and Taurus, one of the things that can happen is your body can expand based on how you eating. And I came to realize, you know, that I gave up on myself to a degree because of just life, feeling that life is just bearing down and bearing down. So I said, you know what? I'm getting back to, I'm not worried about the whole competition type shape, but I'm getting back into the shape where, you know, that I know I can be in. And it's beyond just the physical fitness is what I want to say. It forces you, especially when you deal with food, it forces you to go inside yourself. My old trainer said one of the worst forms of torture is deprivation of food. You got to think what food does. Food is a spiritual thing. Food affects our hormones, and hormones are called chemical messengers. Hormones are ruled by Mercury. So when we're dealing with food, we're dealing with our mind. You're dealing with your psyche, and your psyche, you're dealing with your soul. So people think that, everything's connected. It's easy to be spiritual, one way, but then just say fuck it the other. No, it's harder. The more constraints you self-impose, the harder it is. And you really see how your mind start messing with you. How your moods change. And you may not feel like doing something. But do you have the resolve and the discipline to follow through? This morning, I wasn't in the best mood. And remember I said Venus is a planet of love. So I pull up here to the school to drop my babies off. And my youngest child, my daughter, whose name is Amora. And Amora means love. So she's representing the Venus archetype. So love says to me, Amora, Daddy, what you gonna do today? I said, well, baby, after I drop y'all off, I'm gonna go to the gym. First of all, she said, oh, you gonna go work out so you can get back to that picture that you got at the house? And she's talking about the picture. I showed this in a video way back. A picture that I did this photo shoot after one of my competitions in 2006. And I said, you know what, baby? Yeah, I am going to get back to that. I am going to get back to that. And I felt that at that moment, that was the Venus, Pluto archetype and Saturn playing out. Because even if you want to, on the most surface level, talk about vanity, okay? That's the surface with Venus, vanity. But we're talking about Saturn, which is discipline, and Pluto, which ultimately deals with our will. Our will to transform. And I thought to myself, I said, thank you, baby. You know what? You motivated Daddy. Because it reminded me, yeah, I'm going all the way. All the way. God willing, I'm going all the way. And placing an end to the slavery. The transformation is bigger than the body. It is a statement of self-love. It is a statement that I value myself. Venus is value. I value myself. I'm serving myself. So I know this does not apply to everyone, but the ultimate message does apply. What do you value? And are you willing to work for what you value? Are you willing to show a degree of intensity, Pluto, and work for it, Saturn? Do you have the intestinal fortitude, Pluto? Can you display the necessary discipline, Saturn? Are you allowing yourself to be a victim, Pluto? And wasting your time, Saturn? The ball is in our court. How we play out the rest of 2024 will greatly determine how 2025 unfolds for us. I can't remember if I had anything else, but if I did, it's all right. That's enough for now. I'll come back hopefully maybe tomorrow or another day and talk about the promise of Mars in Aries. For private readings, I'm available through my website, 720astrology.com. Know the stars to know yourself. Peace.